eyes vigorously didn't change the view before me. The moment I saw it, I did a double take. No, a triple take. What met my eyes was our house, now transformed and expanded, looking different from before. My name is May. Occupations? I'm a 43-year-old, working housewife. I've been married to my husband Jim for 15 years. Unfortunately, we haven't had children, but that has allowed us to live happily and closely together, just the two of us. As long as we kept the promise we made before marriage. I believed we would always get along well. As having lost my parents when I was young, my parents-in-law were the only ones I could call parents. Our relationship with them was good. Our house was built about a 10-minute bike ride from my adoptive parents' house. At perfect distance helped maintain our good relationship. The balance was disrupted after my father-in-law passed away. He collapsed suddenly at home and passed away in the hospital without regaining consciousness. My mother-in-law's grief was immeasurable. That's why my husband and I did our best to be there for her. We took turns caring for her when she felt unable to do anything. Thanks to our efforts, my mother-in-law started to feel much better in half a year. Just as my work was getting busier, I thought it was a good thing, but it was too soon to feel relieved. My mother-in-law's visits to our house suddenly increased tremendously, and it became a daily occurrence, without any days off. She would come during the busy morning hours and just let herself in. I regret giving her a spare key and telling her to come anytime she felt lonely right after my father-in-law passed away. Just with her morning visits, my mother-in-law would say, "I'll look after the house, so go to work without worrying," almost pushing me out the door. When this became a daily occurrence, it was understandably not pleasant. I'd been thinking about discussing this with my husband, but when I return from work, he's not yet home. He leaves earlier than me in the morning and returns late at night. In his place, my mother-in-law waits, saying she'll look after the house. She stays all day. One day, exhausted to the point of not having the energy to speak, I came home and was shocked when I went to the bedroom to change. I think I screamed in surprise. Each face I had never seen before was sitting right beside the bed. Back to the living room, there was my mother-in-law, munching on rice crackers. The crumbs from the rice crackers are spilling on the floor mat. No, that's not important right now. To my surprise, I struggled to find my voice. "Mother, did you go into the bedroom?" "Yes, I went in." "Did you put that vase there?" "Yes, I put it there." There's this big vase with a Japanese pattern totally out of place in a Western-style room. I thought, what is that thing? What do you mean? It's a vase. It's obvious by looking. Am I not getting through to her? Now she started eating chocolate. That's the precious vase a colleague gave me as a souvenir from their overseas trip. But never mind that for now. The bedroom was so bland and uninteresting. The atmosphere is much better now, isn't it? It fits so perfectly, like a vase in its rightful place. My mother-in-law seems to be enjoying herself. If someone thinks a giant vase beside the bed is interesting or improves the atmosphere. I'd want to question them for a good hour. Such an out-of-place face. So she brought it here herself, not by delivery. That's impressive, I thought. This is not the time to be impressed. Are we seriously keeping that vase? My mother-in-law says, "Oh, I'm tired from moving the vase." Wait, isn't dinner ready yet? Hurry up, please. So she expects dinner too. What did you do today? Worked hard moving the vase. Is that so? Can you please go home? If this keeps up, I'll get fed up. At first, I thought she was just lonely, but now I don't feel that way at all. Amy, make sure to prepare rice and miso soup for breakfast. She's bustling around busily, ordering me around. Mei, where's my lunch money? I'm looking after the house for you. You're so thoughtless. At least vacuum daily. I'm the one getting tired of looking after the house. Don't modern daughters-in-law care for their mothers-in-law at all? Her endless demands are making me want to tear my hair out. And then she says it's a hassle to go home. I'll sleep in the room with my son, and you, Imes, can sleep on the sofa. So you're staying overnight? That's what I'm saying. Seriously, what kind of punishment is this? She finally left quietly after I gave her my treasured cookies, her favorite. I'm at my wit's end. Jim, please do something about your mother. I cried out to my husband at my limit. Well, even if you say so. Mom must be feeling lonely. I guess. I thought that phase was long over. You know, it's like she's trying to take over our house. Saying it out loud, that seemed to fit the situation best. I had been struggling to describe what was going on, but once I said it, it clicked. Now it seemed like my mother-in-law was trying to take over our home. If things continue this way, it'll play right into my mother-in-law's hands. Oh, forget about the pot. I think this is a problem, but my husband just frowns. Picking over is an exaggeration. It's fine. She's just looking after the house while we're away. We don't need her for that. We have a home security system. Then should we cancel it? It'd save us money. That's not the point. No use. My husband just doesn't get it. Even if I ask him to talk to his mother, he always ends up doing whatever she says. So it's mother over wife. And mama's boy, huh? And still, my mother-in-law's visits don't stop. She's staying over more and more often. Is her takeover project going smoothly? Why do I have to sleep on the sofa? I miss my bed. Well, there's that. After my father-in-law passed away, we felt sorry for her. Maybe we've been too kind to her. Is this what they call taking advantage of the situation? As I was pondering what to do, I was called in by my boss at work, agreed that I might have made a mistake. I went to see what it was about. "You think you could go on a business trip abroad," he said. A business trip overseas is a chance to get some souvenir chocolates from a colleague away from my mother-in-law's reach. Being selected for an overseas business trip means being seen as promising for the future. That's the unwritten rule in our company. I'm moving up. We couldn't have children, but in return, I devoted myself to my work, and it paid off. It seems God is watching over me. My response? Of course. I immediately said, okay. Are you sure it's okay? Giving for a month. It's fine. Mom's here after all. As I looked at my husband, anxious about him taking care of the house in my absence, he confidently smiled and reassured me. But you see, it's his mother that I'm worried about. When I return from the trip, there might be more pots. I'll take care of it until you return, my mother-in-law declared with confidence. It's because of you that I'm worried. But in the end, the business trip went too smoothly and got extended, and before I knew it, 3 months had passed. And now, I'm back home. Oh, how I've missed this place. Yes, it's nostalgic. But why is our house under renovation? I close my eyes for a moment, hoping it's a dream, but when I open them, it's still the same. What I see is my home, transformed by additions and alterations. What in the world? I dashed into the house. Oh, welcome back. You're late. As I entered, my mother-in-law greeted me nonchalantly. Mother-in-law? What on earth is going on here? Well, remodeling. We needed to make it a 2-family home to live comfortably. A 2-family home. Then my husband appeared. Light situation. You were gone for a long time. Dinner will be simple tonight. It's not about having a simple dinner. Why am I just back from a business trip, expected to cook dinner? But that's not the main issue. What have you done without telling me? What do you mean? We remodeled for cohabitation. It's better to have a 2-family home, right? Why did you do it without asking me? But as I confronted him, my husband had a look as if it was a trivial matter. This house is in my name, isn't it? I can do what I want with it. But still, oh come on, stop making a fuss. As I was about to say more, my husband scratched his head in annoyance and looked at me with a changed tone. It's fine, isn't it? It's more convenient to have Mom around. It'll make things easier for you too, so you can focus on your work. And yet you expect me to cook dinner. Housework is a wife's duty, right? You've been slacking off for 3 months. You can at least do that. I felt a wave of exhaustion hit me at my husband's words. Slacking off? Did he just say that? How busy I was overseas, working from morning till night. I didn't even have time to buy a single chocolate bar, despite being abroad. Oh yes, I've turned your room into mine. So where is my room? Did you add it in the extension? There's no such thing. That extension is entirely my living space. But I wanted a room on this side too, so I turned it into a Japanese-style room. That's with the star at the end. I ask, my eyes wide in disbelief. Then where is my room? That's what I'm saying. You don't have one. A daughter-in-law doesn't need her room. Let's see, if I had to say, your room would be the kitchen, right? Lucky you. I was speechless. She took over my room for herself, and now, while I'm working, she dares to assign the kitchen as my room. The quiet flame of anger began to smolder within me. Then my mother-in-law brought out some documents. You earned money on your business trip abroad, right? Here, take care of this. What is this? What does she mean by take care of this? I looked at the documents and nearly fainted. $160,000 in dollars. A total cost of the recent renovations was written there. I was shocked at the astronomical amount and confronted my husband. Hey, how do you plan to pay for this huge amount? We haven't even finished paying off the house loan. How are you going to manage with your salary? We already had a loan for buying this house. And on top of that, I couldn't imagine we could get a loan for another $160,000. Could it be my father-in-law's inheritance? No, that doesn't make sense. There wasn't that much money. As I pondered in confusion, my husband looked at me with an equally puzzled expression. What are you talking about? It's obvious that you're going to pay. But mate, what? That's right. We're relying on your earnings. You'll have to work hard and earn a lot for our sake. They said it as if it was the most natural thing in the world. In other words, they intended to make me pay the arbitrary renovation cost of the $160,000. At that moment, something inside me cooled and then froze over. I was done. These two were no longer needed in my life. Clang, clang, clang. It felt like I heard the gong signaling the end of a match. So, shall we proceed to a no-holds-barred brawl outside the ring? My actions after that were swift. I took the luggage I had brought back from the business trip and left, ignoring their attempts to stop me. I booked a room. The next day, I returned to the house. At the sight of the changed home brought a wave of sadness. As I stood there, my husband came out, seeing me. Exodus, actually, where the hell have you been and what have you been doing? I just had some errands to run. Forget about that and take care of the house. The construction isn't finished yet, and there's a lot to do. I glanced at my yelling husband and entered the house without a word. Hey! He chased after me, flustered, as I ignored him. Hell, Ellen Nay, where were you last night? We had steak especially. Oh yes, here's the bill for the meat. Since you weren't here to order up, it's your responsibility to pay. You left on your own after all. I was handed the receipt. Slowly. I took it, and then I tore it rip. I tore it into 2, then 4 pieces, scattering them all around. Expectation. I blew the shredded pieces of the receipt towards my mother-in-law. What are you doing? Ain't. Even if you tear it up. I remember the amount. Shut up, be quiet. But my response to my hysterical mother-in-law was undoubtedly cold. Overwhelmed by my demeanor, she quieted down, making a strange noise in her throat. Name. Sensing something unusual in my aura, my husband cautiously spoke to me. Ignoring him, my mother-in-law yelled at me. What's with that attitude? Modern daughters-in-law are just... Fine, I'll forgive the steak bill. But make sure you pay the $160,000 for the renovation. Why should I? Because you're the daughter-in-law, existing to serve your mother-in-law and husband. At those words, I snorted derisively. I won't pay. We are strangers now. Hey, my husband was shocked by my words. In front of him, I slammed a piece of paper on the table. This is a copy of the divorce papers. I've already submitted the original. What? The papers. I've already submitted the original. What? Surprised, my husband picked up the paper. It was exactly as I had said. Do you remember what we promised before we got married? Let me think. What was it? The promise my husband and I made before marriage was that if either of us betrayed the other, we would immediately divorce. We prepared divorce papers so we would work hard to be a good couple, thinking it would never come to actually submitting them like a talisman. But now, I'm glad I had them prepared. I kept the divorce papers in a safe deposit box and submitted them yesterday. Since we are now strangers, there's no need for me to pay any money. I just came to pick up my things today. Wait, elections. This is a joke, right? A joke. The biggest joke was thinking you were my husband. Why should I live with people who mock me? But we're married. Not anymore? Marriage is about discussing and deciding important things together. Someone who makes major decisions alone like you isn't a husband. Why did you live happily with your beloved mom? But my cold words made my husband break down in tears. But it was too late for regrets. It's good to care for one's mother. However, that should be balanced with caring for one's wife. The moment he disregarded me and followed his mother's wishes, our marriage was over. This house is in your name, right? I saw the estimate yesterday, and the contract is under your name. Good luck paying back the $160,000. What? I waved my hand cheerily as he collapsed to the floor in shock. As I started gathering my things, my mother-in-law grabbed my arm. Hold on. Mate, you can't just do as you please. I don't need your permission. It doesn't matter what a stranger thinks of me. What? As she was at a loss for words. I remembered something and handed her an item. Here, as a housewarming gift for the renovation. Be sure to display it in your room. What is this? It's a vase. I placed a palm-sized vase in my mother-in-law's hand. It was oddly colorful, oddly shaped, and had a particularly mediocre design. The most time-consuming task yesterday was finding this vase. Believe it or not, it cost $1. You're lucky, aren't you, mother-in-law? Stop joking around. What about the $160,000? Well, I'm just a stranger now, as my mother-in-law cried out with tearful eyes. I, laughing to tears myself, quickly packed my belongings and left the house. What happened after that? Well, the two of them, who had completely relied on my income, seemed to be living quite poorly. $60,000. Pity my mother-in-law sold her own house, but it didn't amount to much and was far from enough to cover the costs. As for my husband, he was already dealing with reduced pay due to poor business performance. The shock of our divorce might have contributed to him making repeated mistakes at work. He was demoted, resulting in a significant salary decrease. I remember receiving messages from him filled with pleas. Please help me. I can't pay the loan, and they're going to seize the house. My mother's behavior has been strange lately. She accuses me of being a thief, wanders around the neighborhood, it seems they might have to let go of the house. And with that shock, my mother-in-law was probably seeing his messages. I replied briskly, "Work hard for your mom, who's more important to you than your wife." And then I set my phone to block his calls. As for me, work was going well. My skills were recognized, and it seems I might soon be offered an overseas position, not just a business trip. Yet from the ill-fated ties, a bright future surely awaits me. Looking up at the contrails in the sky, I took a deep breath. "Jim, I can't believe you used to date such an old lady." He and my sister would say whatever they pleased. And to Jim, who sneered through his nose, saying, "Dumping that old hag was the right thing to do," I responded, "I should be the one thanking you for breaking up." After my words, there was a moment of silence between him and my sister. Then they burst into laughter. "Come on, don't be so tough. You still have feelings for me, don't you?" And when I told them the truth, I'm Stephanie, a 39-year-old office worker. I've dated a few men, but I've never been married due to a lack of desire to do so, or because the relationships ended naturally due to long distances, leaving me single as I approach 40. As I've gotten older, my desire to marry has faded. I think it would be nice to have a partner, but I no longer feel it's necessary to marry. As I was beginning to enjoy my single life, a colleague invited me to a mixer. Honestly, I felt too old for mixers and wasn't particularly looking for a boyfriend at the time. However, unable to refuse my colleague's invitation, I ended up going. Restaurants, to be honest, felt more like a dinner party for people in their 40s, quite a calm atmosphere. I was just there to enjoy some good food. Like some good food and drinks, but there was a man who talked to me quite actively. His name was Jim. He was 36 and 3 years younger than me, with a charming smile. "Stephanie, you're so cute. Are you in your early 30s? You're overdoing it with the compliments." I'm an old lady of 39. Actually, I used to worry about looking older when I was young, but as I aged, people began to think I was younger. He seemed surprised by my actual age, but seemed even more interested. I'd also developed a slight crush on him as he made an effort to talk to me. We swapped numbers during the mixer, and after a few dates, we began going out. 2 weeks into our relationship, he said, "Stephanie, your place is so comfy. Can I live here with you?" If he helped with the housework, and we split the rent and utilities, then it's fine. My practical suggestion made him look a bit disappointed. I quickly followed up, worried I might not have seemed very affectionate. I explained that I had a past relationship with a boyfriend who was careless with money, and we had financial troubles while living together. That's why if we were to live together, I wanted to set rules in advance. He listened to my story and seemed to understand, agreeing to my proposal. Sorry for saying something so unromantic, I apologized, to which he smiled brightly and said, "If that's what it takes to be with you, Stephanie, it'll promise anything." And so our cohabitation began on equal terms. At first, he diligently did his share of the housework and paid his share of the rent and utilities. but as time went on, he started to skip his chores and miss payments. I didn't complain much at first, thinking it wasn't good to be too naggy about it, and just watched him quietly. He seemed stressed with work or short on cash, promising to pay me back the next month. However, he eventually stopped doing the housework, and the unpaid rent and utilities piled up. He showed no remorse or intent to pay. Instead, he claimed it was unreasonable for him to pay since I had been paying rent by myself before, or expressed disappointment, expecting the generosity of an older woman. Then he would try to please me by treating me to meals out or buying me sweets as a thank you for doing the housework. I could tell he was trying to be considerate, so I refrained from scolding him too harshly. I thought enforcing my own demands wasn't entirely fair. But this lenient attitude turned out to be the beginning of a nightmare. After 6 months of living together, he began to act as if he was the boss of the house. He thinks it's natural for women to do the housework, like expecting dinner to be ready when he comes home or the bath to be filled. I talk back or get angry even a little. He asks if I'm going through menopause. I hated it, so I stopped saying anything to him. Well, I was wondering if I should break up with him, he proposed to me. At first, I refused, but he insisted so desperately that I ended up accepting the proposal. I think I was probably just tired. After greeting his parents, we went to my parents' house to greet them. The greetings were finished without any problems, and when I sent him off to the nearest station and returned home, my sister Renee spoke to me. "Stephanie, are you serious about getting married?" Of course. That's why I brought him home, right? Why would she ask that? After hearing my reply, Renee glared at me as if she was possessed. "Oh, you can't get married until I do." Here we go again. Sometimes Renee can be incredibly selfish. I asked her calmly if she wouldn't celebrate my marriage, but she just shook her head. "I can't allow that. It's against my pride." "Then why don't you find a boyfriend now and get married right away?" Realizing the conversation was going nowhere, I quickly returned to my room. Renee was trembling with rage but didn't say anything. That turned the next morning while eating breakfast in the dining room. My sister burst into the room in her pajamas with tremendous force. Then she slammed her hands on the table and said, "I'll get married before you." Stephanie, what on earth is she saying from early in the morning? She sat down confidently, her eyes glittering strangely. Honestly, if there's someone who wants to marry, I think she should just do it. At scariest, I ignored my sister's sudden declaration of marriage and went to the kitchen to wash the dishes I'd used. "Stephanie, don't complain even if I get married first." I'm used to Renee's strange statements. I just responded nonchalantly and started washing the dishes. Jim and I are planning to submit our marriage registration in 3 months. I don't know how she plans to find a marriage partner in these 3 months, but I wish she wouldn't compete over something like this. About 2 weeks had passed since I invited Jim to my parents' house on a Saturday afternoon. He said he would go out for drinks on Friday night and still hasn't returned. We were supposed to go see the wedding venue this afternoon. I thought I understood his careless nature, but he has never forgotten a plan like this. Could something have happened? As I was calling him for who knows how many times, the front door opened, and Jim came back. Oh, not just him. But why? Why is my sister with him? Jim seemed unconcerned about coming home in the morning. And for some reason, he sat down heavily on the sofa, holding hands with her. Why is Renee here? No, more importantly, do you realize we have a wedding venue viewing today? We have a reservation, you know? In my irritation, I pressed him with a sharp tone. He looked up at me as if I was bothersome, and my sister's lips were trembling as if she was trying to hold back her laughter. It's okay. I'll go with Renee. What? Hearing my dumbfounded response, she burst out laughing. He wants to marry someone like me instead of an old lady like you. That's right. I'll handle it with my parents. Renee will explain to your parents, so don't worry. I couldn't comprehend what he was saying. In front of me, still standing there in shock, Em and my sister left with his luggage. Jim is too good for an old lady like you. Don't worry. I'll marry him in your place, so just relax. It seems he has switched to dating my younger sister. That the conclusion drawn from the situation gave me a headache. The moment I thought it made no sense and considered going to sleep, the doorbell rang. When I opened the door expecting him or my sister to have returned, an unexpected person was standing there. You've chosen a nice place for a restaurant, haven't you? I've seen this place on social media. You never went to places like this when you were dating me. But he and my sister only opened their mouths to complain or to mock people. At Tiwai's occurrence, I was already feeling overwhelmed with the desire to leave, but I held back and proceeded inside the restaurant. Today, I was supposed to treat them to a meal for their engagement celebration. Normally, no sister would want to celebrate the engagement of her ex-fiancé and her sister who snatched her ex-fiancé away. Anyone with a decent sense of decency would decline the invitation to such a celebration. However, they both accepted my invitation without any shame. It was a small, fine French restaurant with private rooms separated by doors. After telling the staff about the reservation, I was led to a pre-arranged private room. The two of them entered the French-style room and got excited. I quietly entered the room afterward. He and my sister sat side by side and I sat across the dining table from them. The restaurant has a nice atmosphere, but I really hate following the rules when eating. You really don't pay attention to details, sis. Sorry. I thought it might be better to reserve a slightly upscale restaurant. I let my sister's complaints go in one ear and out the other. Really, how could such selfishness grow into my sister when we share the same blood? Unlike you, sis, I'm a modern girl who doesn't know the rules of fine dining. Stop complaining. Can't be helped. Stephanie is an old woman, expecting him to come to my defense. I felt outraged at his put-down, but took a deep breath to calm myself. In a little while, when the meal is over, everything will be over. Perhaps intimidated by our uneasy atmosphere, after a while, the staff came in to ask about drinks. He and my sister ordered wine. I ordered water. As the staff was about to leave, my sister complained about them being slow in asking for drink orders. I wanted to tell her they were reading the room, but I held back. After all, keeping these two in a good mood was my top priority. Hot alcohol was served, and then, right on time, delicious meals were brought out. The alcohol started to have an effect, and as their stomachs were filled, he and my sister became increasingly cheerful. It was embarrassing to watch the two of them getting so cozy with each other, talking loudly and nonstop. They talked about wanting to live in a high-rise condo in front of the station, wanting 2 children, and going on dates once a month, even after having children. If it hadn't been him and my sister talking, I might have been touched by the joy they were sharing. But it's too early to be crushed by emptiness. As I was thinking about how to steer the conversation, my sister spoke to me. "You'll help us out when we buy an apartment, won't you?" "Why should I have to help you?" My sister's lips twisted in a smug smile at my response. "Well, it's for your cute little sister, isn't it? Or could it be that you still have feelings for Jim?" "That's not it. We're playing tough, but it can't be helped. After all, Jim fell in love with me." My sister snuggled up to him in a showy manner. "You're still a stingy woman even after breaking up. Even when we were living together, you, being older, demanded we split the living expenses." His words made Renee burst into laughter. I asked him, "Did you switch to my sister because I'm stingy?" He answered loudly, "Of course. Who wouldn't be fed up with an old hag who's both stingy and annoying? Fell for her, right? You know, my big sister always tries to get things that are way beyond her reach. Wouldn't it be better if you understood your own level?" The truth is, my sister has always had the habit of taking my things. The list is endless, but once my sister wants something, she takes it without my permission. Since she's 12 years younger than me, I initially thought her selfishness was cute. However, her demanding nature is far from normal. Probably the overindulgence from our parents, who had her at an older age, accelerated her demanding tendencies. Now she's become a full-fledged gimme monster, to the point of even taking away my fiancé. But thanks to that, I met you? In a way. I'm grateful to Stephanie. Jim, I can't believe you dated such an old lady. When we first met, I thought she was a younger woman. Such were the hurtful words he and my sister carelessly threw around. It got to the point where I got too angry that I was just astonished. But to Jim, who sneered through his nose, saying, "Really, dumping that old hag was the right thing to do," I responded, "I should be the one thanking you for breaking up." After my words, there was a moment of silence between him and my sister. Then they burst into laughter. "Come on, don't act so tough. You still have feelings for me, don't you? Come on. Stephanie, you're being embarrassing." The two of them grinning looked ridiculous. I chuckled and said to my sister, "A man who falters just because a younger sister comes on to him is not worth my time. A man like that will do it over and over again." Hey, don't ruin the celebratory mood with such comments. An old hag who can't read the room has no value. He seemed a bit panicked by my words, perhaps because I struck his nerve. That goes for you too. Hunting too? You might have seduced Jim just because you wanted to get married before me, but do you even know what kind of person he is? He may talk sweet now, but he won't help with housework or cleaning. My sister was momentarily taken aback, but she quickly recovered. She was convinced that he would be kind to her and promised to help with housework and childcare. It's just because I wasn't too cute, and because I was old that Jim wasn't motivated, she retorted. I was tired of constantly being criticized by the two of them. Ignoring their nosy complaints, I slid open the doors behind me. As if beyond the doors, my parents and Jim's parents stood with pale faces, and there was also a woman in her mid-20s. Why are Mom and Dad here? And who is that woman? The parents' sudden appearance momentarily startled my sister, but she quickly regained her composure and shouted confidently. As for him, he stood next to my sister, his face pale. Jim, you said you were going to marry me, right? No, that's... His flustered demeanor made my sister's irritation explode. You cheated on me with this woman? Confronted by my sister, he shifted his eyes nervously and broke out in a cold sweat. Since he wouldn't speak, I explained on his behalf. He had been cheating on me with this young woman soon after we started dating. Strictly speaking, since the young woman thought she was promised to get married to him. I suppose she also considered herself his girlfriend. Ex-people anyway, he used to make excuses about having drinks, but would often stay over at this young woman's house. It seems that this continued even after he broke up with me and started dating my sister. The first time I met this woman was when she rang our doorbell minutes after he left my house, having declared his engagement to my sister. Apparently, the young woman had grown suspicious of his actions, followed him around, and confirmed that he entered my house. After calming down the woman, who was fiercely accusing me of being the other woman, the truth came to light. I have no intention of complaining about his marriage to my sister now, but I thought it best to show both families his true nature. With that in mind, I planned this dinner party. I had asked our parents to sit next to us in advance, to listen carefully to the story that was about to unfold. The young woman was also present to prevent him from making any excuses. His parents were trembling with anger. My parents seemed flustered and unsettled. It seemed they had not realized the extent of my sister's selfishness. Our foolish son has caused you trouble, said his father. It's not something that can be resolved with apologies, added his mother, being apologetic. His father approached the fidgeting man silently and forced him to kneel down. His father reprimanded him as he tried to resist, and perhaps realizing the gravity of his father's temper, he knelt down obediently. My sister seemed unable to grasp the situation, but was clearly humiliated by the fact that he had openly cheated on her with a younger woman. But once the truth was revealed, the meeting was dismissed. Each family decided to have a family meeting and then set up a time to discuss the matter on another day. Since I had already broken up with him, I had no interest in whether he married my sister, the young woman. I asked to only be informed about the final outcome and decided to distance myself from my family. I'd already been inconvenienced by my sister, and I felt distrust towards my parents for spoiling her. At the restaurant, his parents apologized along with him, but my parents just looked on helplessly. This incident exploded the long-standing dissatisfaction I had with my parents and my sister. I was done tolerating this, that to live without any stress. I chose to distance myself from my family. I did, however, hear the aftermath from my mother. Since he and my sister had already submitted their marriage registration, they couldn't simply call off the marriage. They went through with the wedding as planned, but their married life was troubled and full of arguments, as I heard from my mother, who was troubled by my sister frequently returning home after they had fights. But I didn't care whatsoever. By the way, it seems he had to pay compensation to the young woman out of his savings due to their broken engagement. I also informed the colleague who had organized the mixer where I met him about what had happened. Thanks to my colleague who likes to gossip around, the news spread throughout his company. It's not clear if it's related, but there are rumors of him being transferred to a regional office. Even after his and my sister's affair had settled, I went through a mentally tough period. I had no regrets about not marrying him, but I sometimes felt a void for the wasted time. Then I met a man at a bar while out for a drink alone for a change of pace, and we hit it off. He had divorced 2 years ago because of his wife's infidelity. I found his calm demeanor comfortable to be with. We're not living together yet, but we've been gradually deepening our relationship by visiting each other's homes. I might marry this man, or I might not. But for now, I want to build a comfortable relationship without focusing on marriage itself. You are not needed in this house. Haven't I always told you this? Why can't you understand such a simple thing? Mother always compared me unfavorably with my excellent brother. I knew she was not a sane person because she could say such things even to a child. It's unbelievable that my mother, who lives with me, would say such things to me. Brian's wife is coming back to the house for her childbirth, so you should leave. I sighed. If she's going to say that, I don't care anymore. Understood. Saying that, I began to pack my belongings. My name is Jen. I'm currently 28 and single. I wanted to get married like my brother, but I couldn't find a new encounter because I was too busy with work. My brother got married 3 years ago. He fell down the stairs and fractured his leg, so he was brought to the hospital where I work. That's when he met the nurse, Hillary, and fell in love at first sight. Nurse Hillary had a gentle personality and was popular among patients and colleagues. So when my brother told me he wanted to date Hillary, I jokingly said, "Really, you're not the only one who's after her, you know." When I mentioned to Hillary that my brother wanted to talk to her, it seemed she was also interested in my brother. She said, Really? That's great. He was the one who broke his leg and had to leave the hospital quickly. Right, I've been wondering about him, but I thought I'd never see him again. And help set a date for her to meet with my brother. As my brother told me, you're my Cupid of love. Thank you, thank you. I'll treat you to an expensive barbecue meal next time. I couldn't help but say, isn't it a bit early? They've only set a date to meet. But I had a feeling they might hit it off. Sure enough, they got along well and started dating after a while. Both of them calling me their Cupid of love made me feel a bit awkward, but I was happy to see their relationship flourishing. However, this meant my status at home became a little worse. At that time, my brother, I, and our mother lived in our house. When my brother went to see Hillary on weekends, our mother, who doted on him, must have felt lonely. But she didn't cherish me when it was just the two of us. But when alone with me, all she did was mock me or make sarcastic remarks. Jen, do you know, Brian's been away from home lately because he's got a girlfriend. At your age and still no boyfriend. What a contrast to Brian. Mother laughed. I thought to myself that I didn't have a boyfriend because I was busy with work, but I didn't say anything. Since I was young, my mother always favored my brother. In her family, the ideology was strong that the eldest son should be the successor. My mother also had this idea ingrained since she was young. Her younger brother became the successor in their family. Growing up, she often heard from her relatives and parents, "If only you were a boy." Maybe growing up in such a family warped her personality a bit. However, I believe it's wrong to repeat what was done to oneself to others. Especially after becoming an adult, escaping that family environment, creating a new family, and then having one's children. Although she doted on my brother, she hardly noticed me as a girl. She never checked my grades, but always praised my brother, saying, "Ian is so smart." Unlike Jen, who can't do anything. I did study, and I even liked studying because I often asked my brother for help. I loved my brother, who was always kind to me. I wanted to be like him, a hero who would save me from our cruel mother. That was my brother, Brian. As a result, inspired to become someone who could help others. I eventually settled into my current job. But no matter how good my grades were, or even if I won competitions, my mother never cared. Resting, what mattered to her were my brother's grades and his future, which she boasted about to the neighbors. I was just an "oh yeah, she exists" in her mind. Therefore, I think Mother knows everything about my brother. But when asked about me, she'd respond, "Oh, Hutchins University. She's probably at some third-rate university nearby." Says the. You know, she's always been not so bright and not very savvy. And I've seen her laughing and excitedly telling this to the neighbors when I opened the window at home. So when she bragged about my brother to the neighbors, laughing about my incompetence, the neighbors looked uncomfortable. But my mother was drunk on her narrative, not caring about their reactions. Ryan and I never thought highly of Mother. But when my brother considered living alone and consulted her, she said something incomprehensible, not wanting to be separated from him. Then let's kick out Jen. Why don't we just continue living in this house, just the two of us? She seemed to think my brother disliked me as she did. I admired my brother and he took good care of me. After I graduated from university, our father divorced her because he couldn't stand how she treated my brother and me differently. Brian stayed at home because he was worried about what she might do to me. Fortunately, his workplace wasn't far from our home. During his job hunt, our mother repeatedly said, "Find a job you can commute to from home." So Brian had to comply. Given this situation, I thought Mother would say she hated the idea of my brother moving out of the house if he got a girlfriend and there was a possibility of marriage. However, I didn't need to worry about that at all. Instead, she started nagging me about not having a boyfriend. I was fed up but thought, as long as she doesn't interfere with Brian and Hillary, it's fine. So I didn't particularly care. This continued even after my brother and Hillary got married. Mother didn't say anything special about my brother moving out to live with Hillary. When I said I thought you'd have something to say about Brian leaving home, Mother snorted and said, "You wouldn't understand since you don't have a boyfriend or any plans for marriage. It's unthinkable to interfere with a newlywed couple's home. It's impossible to do certain things with others around. I want to see Brian's children soon." "You're dumb," she said, never forgetting to mock me, and then left. I see, Mother decided not to interfere with my brother and Hillary for a while because she wanted to see her grandchildren. However, 2 years after their marriage, Mother visibly started getting irritated. She would say things like, "Normally, a woman who doesn't have a child within 3 years gets left by her husband. I'm just tolerating it because it hasn't been 3 years yet," quite openly in the house. But since she was saying these things to me, it meant she wasn't saying anything to Hillary. So I just listened to her venting her frustrations without saying anything back. I knew my brother and Hillary were planning to have children once they had saved enough money, so I wasn't worried about them not having children. But it seems my brother didn't bother to tell Mother about their plans, so she was not getting any information about him. His mother, who used to watch my brother's every move when we lived together, seems to have grown tired of not being able to check on him since he moved out. Mother began to hurl insults more than before every time she saw me. She said, "You always look so gloomy. The place where you work must want to fire you right away. It's unthinkable that someone like you can work properly in society." Well, I didn't care since her words were far from the truth. Then, before 3 years had passed, we received news that Hillary was pregnant. Mother was jumping for joy at this news. "Is it a boy? That must be a boy. I've decided my first grandchild will be a boy," Mother said. Hillary replied, "It's still too early to tell the gender." But Mother convinced herself it would be a boy and started buying baby items for a boy. Mother's behavior got even worse after Hillary said she would go to her parents' house for childbirth. When I got home, I saw Mother taking out a suitcase, so I asked her, "Are you going on a trip somewhere?" "Mom," but she glared at me and said, "I'm preparing for you to leave this house." I was stunned because I had no intention of leaving this house. You are not needed in this house. Kevin, I always told you this. Why can't you understand such a simple thing? As I stood there stunned, unable to accept her words, Mother repeated the same thing she always said. I was the child who wasn't needed in this house. Like from the moment they knew I was a girl, they had the option not to have me. But they were stopped by my father and others around. My mother said she regretted having me. Every time she said this again, it pained my heart. Neither my brother nor father would ever say such things to me, but to my mother. I was indeed a child she wished she hadn't had. But why is Mother suddenly preparing for me to leave this house? Me leave this house. What do you mean? When I asked, Mother raised her voice and said, Brian and Hillary are coming back here for her childbirth, so you should leave. I was initially shocked and saddened, but after hearing her words, I was utterly bewildered. But it would be pointless to say anything to Mother. I sighed. That's enough. Since Mother told me to leave, I will go. All right. But I haven't decided where to live next. It will take at least a week, I think. Mother kept muttering, You're so slow at moving out. Ryan and Hillary won't feel comfortable coming here with a child like you around, but she fell silent when I started packing my belongings. Perhaps she realized that complaining would only delay my moving out. In my mind, I thought, I'm the one paying $1,900 in rent. Right, what is she going to do after kicking me out? Then, feeling overwhelmed by the amount of stuff I had to pack, I decided to hire a moving company. I found a place near the hospital where I work that was available for immediate move-in, signed the contract, and arranged to move my belongings the next day. I decided to throw away or sell any unwanted furniture. The next day, when the moving truck arrived, Mother seemed pleased, saying, Now I won't have to see your gloomy face anymore. However, as the movers started loading all the furniture and appliances into the truck, her face grew pale. Wait, what are you doing? Are you planning to take everything from this house? She yelled. I responded, No, not everything. It won't all fit in my new place. I'll sell or throw away what I don't need. But when she raised her hand in anger, I quickly stepped back. Her hand swung down, hitting nothing. Why can he decide what to do with this house's belongings? Well, Brian and I bought the furniture and appliances. I asked him, and he said I could do whatever I wanted with them. This was when my brother married Hillary and left the house. If you ever leave this house, don't worry about me and do whatever you want with the furniture and appliances. I've already moved everything I need to my new home, he told me. So, I did inform him over Messenger, but I decided to dispose of all the furniture and appliances. My brother even said, Go ahead, do it. It didn't matter to me what our mother, who hadn't paid for any of it, said. Mother kept screaming. Brian would never say such a thing. T and Hillary are going to live here, but all I could do was sigh. Mom, maybe you should stop running with just your assumptions. I advised her, thinking of her well-being, but she retorted, What? A fool like you has no right to tell me that. Retovar, no matter what job I have or what life I lead. I'm just a stupid, good-for-nothing girl. I had no intention of explaining everything politely to a mother who never listened to me. Since she only listened to my mother who never listened to me. Since she only listened to my brother, I left it to him. Then, whatever happens after this, I won't help you, I said as I got into the car. Mother, red-faced, yelled, I don't need help from someone useless like you that disappear anywhere. I'll get Brian to buy new furniture and appliances. I doubted my brother would buy anything for her. Heck, and it was comical to think she could continue living in the house unchanged even after I left. I couldn't help but laugh, but Mother probably didn't understand why. And so, I left the house. The next day, someone went to the house. That the rental contract for this house expires this month. You need to leave this house. The person who told Mother this was our father, my brother and my father. For Mother, he is probably considered her ex-husband. He divorced her because she never changed her different attitudes towards my brother and me. But during their divorce talks, she insisted, I've always lived in this house. I won't leave, you're the one who should leave. For some reason, Mother, thinking this house was hers, refused to listen to anyone and made a fuss for 3 months, leading Dad to allow her to continue living here. However, feeling sorry for her, the house was made a rental and my brother and I were paying the monthly rent of $1,900. He told Mother to pay too, but she refused, insisting the house wasn't a rental but her own due to her misconception. I thought this would eventually lead to her being evicted, but I never imagined it would happen due to Hillary's return home for childbirth. Wait a minute. What do you mean by rental? Isn't this house bought by my father? She demanded. Dad sighed heavily. Your father was the kind of person who lied for appearances. He told you he contributed to buying this house. That's a big mistake. I bought it and it's in my name. You threw a fit about not wanting to leave, so I made it a rental. And now it's only natural the rental agreement is terminated since you drove out Jen, who had been paying the rent all this time. Mother seemed to pale at Dad's words, realizing her huge misunderstanding only when the house was empty of belongings. She still harbored some hope. That's right. Even without Jen, I have Brian and Hillary are coming here for her childbirth. So from now on, Brian will pay the rent for this house. After hearing the situation from my brother and me, Dad shook his head. You only hear what suits you? Hillary will have her childbirth at her own parents' home. She's not coming here. She'll have her childbirth at her own parents' home. And Brian will stay in the apartment he shared with Hillary during her absence. Greg, you might have thought that Brian would come back to live with you once the grandchild is born. But have Brian or Hillary ever mentioned living together? They don't intend to live with you. And wait, Mother seemed to realize her situation. She could no longer live in the house she had been in and her beloved eldest son. Brian wouldn't live with her, nor could she live her grandchild. Crushed by this reality, Dad, who disliked her as much as my brother, and I did, wasn't going to wait for her to recover. Now leave this house. Oh, I doubt you have any money since you've never worked, despite being told to by Brian and Jen. Then remarry me and you can support me. What? Who would remarry someone as awful as you? I've informed your brother. He said he's ashamed and will take you back. Mother broke down crying. It seemed her parents' home had always been a place she disliked. I clicked. But having treated her daughter the same way she was treated, refusing to change despite anyone's words, she ended up in this situation. My brother's doing well, but I too worked hard to become a doctor and have been telling her repeatedly. Yet she never believed me, continuing to ridicule me. Mother's end is tragic. Eventually, her brother came to take her away. Not wanting to stay at her parents' home, she went to my brother's workplace. But he had long since changed jobs and hadn't told her. So when she was told Brian retired over 2 years ago, she yelled, "That's a lie. Bring Brian out now." She caused a scene in the company's lobby, breaking equipment, and was later charged for damages. Her brother paid the compensation, but vowed to make her repay it, putting her to work in a company run by relatives. Now she works under watchful, cold eyes, known for her actions and the damage. She tried to contact me, my brother, and Dad several times, but all three of us had blocked her and changed our phones, so she couldn't reach us anymore. As for me, I visited my brother's newborn daughter, a lively little girl. Seen her, I thought, children are wonderful, feeling truly happy.